We're doing it. And we're doing it. How you feeling, Luce? How you feeling? You like laying on my hand? Is that comfy for you? I feel you. Hope everyone is well. Hope everyone is having a good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Whatever your time zone is. I really don't know. I don't know what your time zone is. I'm just guessing. It might be lunchtime. You might be having a sandwich, salad. What's up, Platypus? It's been a minute. Hey, and Platypus, we're gonna be touring in Australia. What's up, Myra's mama? What's up, Karen? Not awake, but here. Well, thank you. Howdy, Ron and Lucy, says Spider. Howdy, howdy, Spider. What's up, Matthew? How are you? Good to see everybody. Anne-Marie Cunningham. I don't know what my time zone is. I don't know what mine is either. No, it's Pacific. That's mine. That's how mine rolls. Hope everyone is doing well. We're going to hop in here in just a few minutes. And I got a fun question for later. And I also got a fun song of the day. So we got all that going on. Hi, everyone. Hi, Susan. Hi, Moose Girl. What does my shirt say? My shirt says Operation Ivy, which is a fantastic ska punk band that later went on to become Rancid and Common Rider. A lot of people aren't familiar with Common Rider, but they were fantastic. The singer for Operation Ivy, that was his band after Operation Ivy broke up. But I'm still a big Operation Ivy person. I always drink out of a mason jar. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. I am Ron Placone, your host. You guys sent me a lot of stuff today. We're going to try to get to most, if not all of it. But we'll start out with the song of the day. So this song of the day was sent to us by Brian. Brian, thank you for your submission. And the song is Bury a Friend by Billie Eilish. And that is spelled Billie, and Eilish is spelled Eilish. Never listened to Billie Eilish before. This is my first exposure, and I enjoyed the track. It kind of has an electronic thing, a lot of like synthesized voice modulations in the singing, but very rhythmic. A certain rhythmic pattern followed the lyrics, which were very dark. I mean, the track is called Bury a Friend. Kind of reminded me of Bjork a little bit, had a little bit of a Bjork feel, but her singing voice specifically kind of reminded me of Regina Spektor. And I mean that as a compliment because I'm a really big Regina Spektor fan. I like Bjork a lot too, but yeah, it reminded me of that kind of like Icelandic pop, but with a certain poetic spoken word element to it too. I guess we had a little bit of a spoken word theme this week because we did Kate Tempest the other day too. Kate Tempest was the song of the day, I believe, on Tuesday. And man, Kate Tempest has a new fan in me. I am a new Kate Tempest fan now. And today's song, Billie Eilish, Bury a Friend. So again, that's Billie Eilish. That track is called Bury a Friend. I enjoyed it. It's not a style of music I listen to all the time as a listener. But I certainly enjoyed that track. So yeah, check it out. Bury a Friend, Billie Eilish. Brian, thank you for that submission. All right, here we go. So this is something that's happening literally right now. This is happening right now at the AWS Summit. What is that? That's a summit by Amazon. It's Amazon's web services. So there's a summit going on right now. And what happened at this summit? Some protests. What was the protest in regards to? The protest was in regards to calling out Amazon to demand that Amazon cut ties with ICE and Trump's deportation machine. So let's check this out here. There's some video going on, and this is happening again right now. So let's check out this video. All right, so a person is protesting, and this is like in the middle of a speech.
We've actually moved over into areas where, like IoT, like mobile development, how much longer will you have blood on your hands? Machine learning, analytics, all of these different areas. So it is important now that we've created cut ties with ICE!
Wow, now people are yelling.
Cut ties!
They're yelling cut ties with ICE, and there's multiple people. It's not just first it was the one, there was the one person, and she was, so here, let me so you guys can see it better. There was the one person, her right here. And then this guy started yelling too. So there's multiple people. All right, let's keep watching.
Ties with ICE! Cut ties with ICE!
So this dude's got some really good vocal pipes. I mean, she was very good too. So she's out of the camera now, the woman who was protesting first. But this dude, he's got some pipes. I mean, that was a pretty impressive, hefty cut ties with ICE, and he's yelling it, and he's making his voice heard. All right, so let's watch the rest of this.
Cut ties with ICE! Cut ties with ICE! Cut ties with ICE!
Amazon. And of course, the people speaking pretty much ignored it and just kept going. But they're calling Amazon out to cut ties with ICE. This is at Amazon's Web Services Summit, which sounds like maybe one of the most boring events I could ever imagine in my life. There's more boring, but I mean, we know what Amazon is. We know what they do. People know, oh, this is where I get a bunch of stuff. You need a summit around it. I'm sure there's all kinds of tech stuff that I wouldn't even understand that goes on in that summit. I'm sure of it. But still sounds painfully boring, doesn't it? So let's see what else is going on in regards to this hashtag, because they pretty much, all right, so here's a tweet from a person named Kenneth Hui. I don't know who that is, but basically all I did here was I just searched the hashtag. Like I just searched the AWS Summit hashtag. And what's really cool is when you search that hashtag, you see a lot of talk of the protest. So here's a tweet. The protest game is strong at the AWS Summit today. Strategically placed folks planted in the audience, shouting at different points in the keynote for Amazon to cut alleged ties with ICE. Welcome to New York. Make the Road New York also says, now immigrants and allies interrupt the AWS Summit with audio of detained immigrant children and demand that the company ties with Trump's deportation force. I think this is a different video than what we watched. Let's check this one out.
Children being separated from their families at a U.S. customs and border.
Okay, so it's most important to listen to each other. I think many of you here are already AWS customers, and some of you have been there.
So what happened was this person started protesting, and this person started demanding that they break ties with ICE. And the person on the mic was like, what's important is that we listen to each other. Like there's horrific shit going on in our border, concentration camps. And this person goes, we need to listen to each other. Let's listen to each other. Because the person speaking had no clue how to respond to that situation. They had no clue what to say. Maybe they care, maybe they don't. I don't know. I don't know who that is speaking up there. I have no idea. So I can't speak to their moral psyche one way or another. I have no clue. But their initial response was just, we need to listen to each other. All right, let's watch more of this video here.
For the past 12 years. And others in the room here will be new AWS customers. And I think we connect with each other because we can learn from each other about sort of what are best practices and how to best engage with AWS. And most importantly, give us feedback.
Okay, I think you just got feedback. I don't know if you guys could like decipher everything that dude was saying. He was like, well, we need to work together. We need to listen to each other. Just a bunch of platitude, nothing. Like he was saying just literally nothing. And then he went on to say, and we're open to feedback. Well, you just got some feedback. The feedback was cut ties with ICE. Cut ties with ICE. Cut ties with ICE. What's going on is horrible, and y'all are participating. And by the way, Amazon wants to participate even more. Jeff Bezos wants to give all the facial recognition work Amazon has done over to the FBI, and he's already doing it. So, and is it a coincidence that he set up the new place right next to the Pentagon? Of course it's not. He knew where he was going to go the entire time. We know this. He knew the whole time where he was going to go. It was a lie that he was actually looking for a second location. That was a lie. He knew the whole time he's going to New York, and he's going right near the Pentagon. Those are the places he's going. But what did he get in the meantime? He got a bunch of cities to give him $1 billion worth of data information. That's what he got. All right. So moving on here. So that's going on right now. We are watching that unfold in real time. There are protesters at the AWS Summit, the Amazon Web Services Summit in New York City. They are protesting. They are listening to people talk about the web services. Not only are they protesting, they are trying really hard to stay awake through these speeches. We're going to talk about the cool things Amazon does. So instead of having 50% of all online retail, maybe next year we can have 75. And we're helping this billionaire get even richer, which, by the way, he screwed over a lot of people to get to the top. And now he's a psychopath. He's a straight up psychopath. Was he always a psychopath? Maybe, maybe not. But he's a straight up psychopath. When you do the stuff Jeff Bezos does, you're a psychopath. And I drink water from a mason jar. So those protests are happening. Good for the people protesting. Solidarity. Please try to stay awake through those web services lectures. I'm sure it's really interesting stuff if you're a tech person. I'm not, and I'm poking fun at it because it's Amazon. All right. So moving on here. Do not tweet. Nancy Pelosi scolds progressives. What's happening here? Check this out. Do not tweet. Pelosi scolds progressives in closed-door meeting. The House Speaker urged liberal Democrats, this is the verbiage from the article, not to criticize their centrist colleagues in public. All right, so Speaker Nancy Pelosi chided progressives in a closed-door meeting Wednesday, calling on them to address their intra-party grievances privately rather than blasting, their centrist colleagues on Twitter. That's a mouthful. Pelosi's comments, which were described as stern, came during the first full caucus meeting since a major blow-up over emergency border funding last month between progressive and moderate lawmakers, as well as a recent spat with Ocasio-Cortez and her freshman allies. So here's a quote from Pelosi. So again, you got a complaint, you come and talk to me about it. So I can do nothing. That's not part of the quote. You come talk to me about it so I can tell you we're capitalists. That's the way it is. You got into office to help people. You freshman progressives over here, you actually thought you were committing to public service. Oh boy, you have a lot to learn. Come talk to me about your complaint so I cannot give a shit. All right, let's see what else there is in this article. But do not tweet about our members and expect us to think that is just okay. Yeah, how dare you be transparent with the public? How dare you think you're a public servant and a public official and you should be transparent with the public? How dare you? So that's what Pelosi says. Imagine being in an organization or a company so shitty and so uninspiring and morale is so low that they need to hold a meeting where your boss asks you to not badmouth the place on Twitter. Imagine. Now, I know all companies, they have a disclaimer in their code of conduct. They usually have a thing that says you can't badmouth the company on Twitter. I know that. That's not what I'm referring to. What I mean is that they actually have to have a special meeting to say, hey, I know we suck. Please don't badmouth us on Twitter. Hey, guys, here at Fun Food Inc., I know that some of you have tweeted about the fact that our hamburgers are actually made out of plastic and cow shit. Please don't do that. Please kind of keep that under wraps. Please don't do that. That's what this is doing. Hey, I know we suck. Could you please stop tweeting about it? I know that we're so terrible and we're treating you so terribly as a colleague. But please don't go on social media about it. I mean, notice Pelosi didn't have a meeting to say, hey, what can we do differently? What's going on? But, you know, in fairness to Pelosi, she does have her supporters. Here's one of her supporters right now. Here's something from one of her supporters. One of her supporters is this guy. And here's what this guy says about it. Drew Hamill has this to say. Drew Hamill says, Pelosi, the speaker was not scolding progressives. She was trying to say to all members that we as a family, what a fucking joke. We as a family should have our conversations together as a caucus, not on Twitter. This was a general comment not aimed at any particular member or group. This was a unifying speech and well received. That's according to this guy, Drew Hamill. That's according to Drew Hamill. So who is Drew Hamill? Well, Drew Hamill is a deputy chief of staff for Nancy Pelosi. And here's one of the things you can count on from this guy. Here's something that Politico has to say about this Drew Hamill fellow. So Drew Hamill, deputy chief of staff for House Democrat leader Nancy Pelosi. If you want to rise to power in Congress, you'll need somebody like Drew Hamill. This is according to the Politico. Hamill, a deputy chief of staff to House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, is the California Democrats' fiercest on-the-record defender and one of her closest aides. Write, tweet, or say something on air about Pelosi, especially if it's negative, and you'll be getting a call from Hamill. Count on it. This is according to the article. Gee, is that, man, that's got to be an embellishment, right? Is that really what this dude's all about? Does this dude really spend so much of his time just defending Pelosi on Twitter? Well, let's see, shall we? Check out this guy's feed. First of all, that's his background image. That's his background image. It's just a picture of her face. It's a picture of Nancy Pelosi's face. And let's see. So here's his claim here. It was actually a unity speech. It was well received. Gee, look at this guy's timeline. Nancy Pelosi, retweeting Nancy Pelosi, retweeting somebody defending Pelosi. I enjoy swatting at nitwits who don't bother reading the interview. This guy refers to people criticizing Pelosi as nitwits, and he is swatting at them. Meanwhile, his entire job is to just mind-numbingly defend her on Twitter. That's pretty much his job. Here's another tweet, defending Pelosi. The word Pelosi is in every single one of this guy's tweets and retweets. He either retweets her or he retweets someone defending her, or if he tweets a criticism of her, he argues against it. This guy is a sycophant and a bootlicker to the highest degree. This is a job. This is Drew Hamill's job. That's his actual job. And we're supposed to respect our political process. Why? Why? Is it deserving of any respect? No. Is it deserving of any reverence? No. What are the prerequisites for Drew Hamill's jobs? You have to have no integrity whatsoever. You have to not give a shit about what is right and wrong. And you have to just blindly follow somebody with no critical lens whatsoever. None. You have to have no shame. I mean, what an amazing... Who can do that? Well, this guy can. But just think about that. You have to uncritically follow an elected official and defend them no matter what. That's your job. That is your job. the people who should be most receiving of public criticism, public officials who are supposed to serve the public, there are jobs out there to literally just defend them at all costs. And that's what this guy, Drew Hamill, does. How can you do a job like that and be happy? I mean, what has to go through your brain? Well, you get paid a lot of money. I guess that's one thing. You get paid an awful lot of money. But wow. Wow. So there's Nancy Pelosi for you, and she has her defenders, the people who are paid to defend her at all costs and no matter what. And it's not just Nancy Pelosi that, I mean, you know, Republicans have that, the other Democrats have that. It's just amazing. There are jobs out there where you just defend an elected official uncritically, no matter what, and you just back clean up for them on social media. That's a job. And we're supposed to respect our process, our political process, our political anatomy here in the United States. It is a broken, corrupt system beyond repair that has been handed over to the 1% and the corporate donors years ago, and it is a plutocracy. And we're supposed to respect that system. We're supposed to take that system seriously. It's unbelievable. That's why when people, sometimes I get asked if I'm going to run for office, I'm like, no, I would never do that. You have to have a certain reverence for the system that I don't have. It is not deserving of any kind of reverence. It is deserving of mockery and ridicule. And it is in dire need of a revolution. We need a political revolution yesterday. But you know what? There are some bright minds coming up, and this guy's one of them. Pete Buttigieg. Check this out. Here's an article. We don't need Pete Buttigieg's national service program. We already knew this, but here's a reminder. Pete Buttigieg thinks national service will solve America's inequality and division. This is according to the article. But what we actually need to build solidarity and improve lives are broad social guarantees to decent jobs, healthcare, and education. I agree. So a new call to service. This is Buttigieg's latest plan, and this would immediately increase the number of available national service positions by almost 200,000, with the ultimate goal of creating a pathway towards a universal national expectation of service for all 4 million high school graduates every year. While it's not entirely clear how the program will work, those who participate will receive consideration for public service, student debt forgiveness, vocational training, and hiring preferences. All right, so here is his quote on this. In the great unwinding of American civic society underway, this is what his website says, and at a time when Americans are experiencing record low trust in fellow citizens and American institutions, few, if any, single policy solutions carry the promise of democratic renewal more than national service. At this moment, when social media and deepening polarization have put us into distinct bubbles, national service is that much more essential to fashioning a common carrier. So basically what he's saying, we're divided, people are hurting, people are suffering, there's some serious issues in this country, we are polarized, I know, let's get the military up in this. We created an economy of war that has crippled our nation. It has crippled our nation. Let's get the military involved with this. Let's change the way people think. So I've never served in the military. I never have. But you know what? I read a lot of the feedback from people who have. There's a Twitter thread out there that you can find. Do not read it on an empty stomach. We talked about it on this show, where the Army said, hey, join the Army, enlist, share your stories. The Army encouraged people to share their stories. And the stories that they got were all stories of PTSD, people who can't function in society anymore because of what they had to go through overseas, people who realized that all of our wars are bullshit, people who had a family member commit suicide, so that family member couldn't type and submit their own response. A family member had to do it for them because they're dead now, because they couldn't handle the PTSD and they weren't getting the help they needed. But according to Pete Buttigieg, you go into the military, you come out more patriotic, you feel better, you don't feel polarized anymore. All your problems are solved with this National Year of Service, which again comes from a place of huge privilege. You know, a lot of people don't have that luxury, Pete Buttigieg. because they had to work a couple jobs while they were in high school to help their family pay the bills. And now that they're out, they have to help even more. They might have kids of their own. They can't just do some year of service. Even if it's compensated, they can't just do that because they're working to survive. So instead of going straight to this year of service, which we know you want to get the military involved a lot, especially you, Pete Buttigieg, why not try building towards a society where something like that would be more possible for a lot of people? Hey, it'd be great if everybody, right when they went out of college, could just go do a year in the Peace Corps if they wanted to. If they wanted to. Could just go do AmeriCorps. Could go learn some type of skill. Could volunteer for a year and learn a new skill set that they didn't have before and then enter the job market with that skill set. Maybe they were building houses. Now they have all this skill set building houses. It'd be amazing if we lived in that society. That'd be great. I'm not against that in principle, but our society ain't there yet. And Pete Buttigieg's vision isn't going to get us there. And we do not need his year in service, as this article points out. Let's get the military up involved in this. Pete Buttigieg, why didn't he fire the chief? The question he couldn't answer. That's the question he couldn't answer because he doesn't give a shit about police brutality and police corruption and racism in law enforcement because he didn't fire the chief and he got called out for it. That single-handedly should have ended his campaign. But because he gets a lot of Wall Street money, which, by the way, right after that happened, right after he was humiliated on that debate stage for getting called out for not firing a police chief that should have been fired, he got a bunch of Wall Street money. He got a big Wall Street bump because the establishment, they like him. The establishment likes Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg! You're not saying his name right. Stop saying his name like Count Chocula. No. I like saying his name like Count
Even
Chocula.
though we're heading toward levels of inequality.
Oh, and that's the next story. Sorry, it started on autoplay there. So somebody shared this on the Reddit subsection. This is Robert Reich. Now, Robert Reich, I don't always agree with him on everything. I agree with him on some things. Sometimes I think in particular when it comes to the Democratic Party, he goes very soft on them at times. Not all the time, but he goes very soft on them a lot of the time. And when he's not going soft at them, he kind of pretends like they don't know what the problem is or pretends like this isn't by design. Like at one point, he made a video where he called out money in politics and he called out how the Democrats seem more concerned with fundraising than they are concerned with winning, which is true because the Democratic establishment knows that whether they win or lose, the gravy train keeps rolling. Democrats' first priority at the establishment level is not winning. It just isn't. I mean, that's just a fact. Their first priority is keeping the donors happy, which bleeds into their second priority, which is stifling progressives, because you got to stifle progressive policy to keep the donors happy. Their third priority, and it's a distant third, is maybe beating a Republican or two. That's just true. I mean, what do you call a system where people have money on both teams? Wall Street buys both parties. What would you call a horse race if somebody just bet on every single horse? It's fixed. It's rigged. But here's a video by Robert Wright that I think is pretty right on. Someone shared this in the Reddit subsection, and I think it's worth going through. I think it's pretty cool. All right, so let's watch some of this here. Oh wait, let me put it. Yeah, there we go. Let me put it here. All right, so here we go. There's Robert Reich. He's going to talk about the 4 biggest right-wing lies about inequality.
Not seen since the days of the 19th century.
Here, let me restart that.
Even though we're heading toward levels of inequality not seen since the days of the 19th century robber barons.
And also pretty much potentially since like ancient Egypt days. Richard Wolff kind of talks about that, the economist Richard Wolff. But anyway.
Right-wing conservatives keep lying about what's happening and what to do about it.
And they lie about everything else.
Here are their 4 biggest lies about inequality, followed by the truth.
Meanwhile,
the deep state, meanwhile, Muslims are at it again.
All right.
Lie number 1. The rich and CEOs are America's job creators, so we dare not tax them. The truth is the middle class and poor are the job creators through their purchases of goods and services. If they don't have enough purchasing power because they're not paid enough, Companies won't create more jobs, and the economy won't grow. The giant Trump Republican tax cut for corporations and the rich hasn't trickled down to ordinary Americans. It's just made the rich even richer. Lie number 2.
Yeah, so that's kind of an obvious one that we all know. It's trickle-down economics has not worked ever. It hasn't worked ever. Now, keep in mind, when he makes these videos, he's making them for a general audience. I know, like, a lot of you that tune into this show all the time, you might be like, wow, that's really preaching to the choir. Yeah, but he's making this for a general audience. So he's calling out these lies, and he's doing it with, with pretty neat drawings. I wonder if he actually does that in the classroom, like does those drawings. I'd imagine he does. Obviously, he does not go that fast. I know he's not drawing in real time. But anyway, let's watch more of the video.
People are paid what they're worth in the market, so we shouldn't tamper with pay. Wrong. 4 decades ago, CEOs of big companies got 30 times the pay of typical workers. In 2017, they got 361 times their workers' pay.
So another thing to add to that, in other countries, it's not near as severe. 361, nearly 400 to 1. That's what a CEO makes to the average worker. In other countries, that's unheard of, by the way. So not only have we gotten increasingly bad since the 1970s, which, by the way, what happened in the 1970s, that's when the rise of neoliberalism started. And neoliberalism, again, is basically give to the CEOs, give to the rich, Reaganomics, trickle down, quote unquote, which hasn't worked at all, and don't have any protections for workers. That's essentially what neoliberalism is all about. Since that started rising in the 70s, which there's a great history by Noam Chomsky on the history of neoliberalism, started in the 70s. Didn't start with Reagan, got amplified via Reagan, but started in the 70s, even pre-Carter, and has just kept moving. And it's all I've known in my entire lifetime. We have just lived in rugged neoliberalism. And now we're at the point where it's 361 plus to 1. Unheard of in other countries. All right.
Not because they've done such a great job, but because they control the compensation committees of their boards. They're using corporate profits to buy back even more shares of stock, so their total compensation rises even more. And they're monopolizing the economy at the same time. Meanwhile, most American workers earn nearly the same today as they did 40 years ago, adjusted for inflation.
Look at that. Look at that. Here, let me large screen that. Look at this. From 1964, median wage has barely budged in decades. In decades. 1964 to 2018. Has the cost of groceries stayed the same? Nowhere close. There's studies out there where they'll show you via a cart. Like they'll have a grocery cart and they'll be like, this is the amount of groceries you could get like 10, 20 years ago for this amount of money. This is the amount you get now. And you see like 4 or 5 things. I mean, I've noticed that in my lifetime, and I'm sure all of you have too. Like I remember, grocery shopping with my mom when I was a kid and what a certain amount of money would get as far as groceries go. Because I would hear the total at the end, and I was, cognizant of numbers, obviously, and, because I was like 8 or whatever. And then I go to the grocery store now and it's like, holy shit. Look at that. Decades. From the 60s. Decades is putting it gently. I mean, we're talking generations. Generations. This is broken. So broken.
They're working less hard now, but because they don't have strong unions bargaining for them as they did then.
As he said, it's not because they're not working hard. In fact, people are working even more, by the way. It used to be in the 60s and before, when there were strong unions, it used to be one job gave you enough to live. Now, most people work 2 and 3 jobs. And we know this.
Lie number 3. Any child can make it in America with enough guts, gumption, and intelligence, so we don't need to do anything for poor and working class kids. The truth is, we already do next to nothing for poor and working class kids. Their schools don't have enough teachers or staff. Their textbooks are outdated. They lack science labs. Their school buildings are falling apart. We don't help with costs of childcare. We don't invest in early childhood education. We spend less educating poor kids than we do educating kids from wealthy families. Lie number.
So that can be summed up the way Carlin summed it up. They call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe in it. Hey, pull yourself by your own bootstraps and the sky is the limit. Actually, it's not even the limit. You could be an astronaut maybe, but hey, guess what? We're not going to give you anything. And that's true. And they're gutting education. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse. All right. So anyway, lie number 4. Let's see. What's the last lie here?
4. Increasing the minimum wage will result in fewer jobs, so we shouldn't raise it. In fact, studies show that in states where the minimum wage has been increased, the number of jobs increases because minimum wage workers have more money to spend, resulting in more jobs, and also saving employers money on employee turnover. America's lurch toward widening inequality can be reversed, but doing so will require bold political steps, and the American public must know the facts. So don't listen to the right-wing lies about inequality. Know the truth and act on it. What do you think? What are some other lies about inequality you've heard? Let us know in the comments.
So there you have it. That was a good video by Robert Reich. I would go a step further, and I would say it's not just also right-wing lies. It's also realize that when he said bold political steps, underline that bold. In other words, incrementalism ain't going to cut it. There's nothing pragmatic about an incremental solution to a catastrophic problem. That's one thing I would add to that. But overall, very good video by Robert Reich. I like that. Thank you for sharing it. And here's something from Edwin. Moving on up here, or moving on, not on up. We're just moving linear. We're not going up or down per se. We're just moving on. Here's something on the bicycle culture, which, I ride my bike. In fact, you know what, Edwin? I don't know. Maybe you knew this. Maybe you were subtly shaming me. I'm just kidding, of course. But I have been meaning to get my tire fixed on my bicycle for almost a year. That's embarrassing. I'm a little embarrassed right now. Am I blushing? I might be. It's embarrassing. But my bike, it's been almost a year. And I used to ride my bike a fair amount. I need to fix a tire, and I have just been putting it off a lot. Maybe Edwin knew that, and he's trying to subtly call me out. Ron, you got to fix your bike. I'm subtly calling you out for it. I'm pretty sure Edwin didn't know that, and I'm kidding, obviously. But anyway, fact remains, I feel that. I feel it. Thank you, Edwin. You gave me the wake-up call I needed. I got to get my bike fixed. But here's a video about bicycling in the street. And this is from Phil Gaiman, who's a retired pro bicyclist, and has this to say about that issue. Let's check out this video. It's pretty interesting. So here we go. Here, let me move it to where he starts talking.
So gets hit by a car.
So the premise of this is, please share this when I'm killed by someone driving a car, which is, wow, kind of bleak, but all right, let's watch it.
These headlines about a cyclist who gets hit by a car, and the police or the media or the courts, they all blame the victim, or they don't care at all. So for example, a cyclist is riding along, minding his own business, gets hit from behind, killed, and the police use it as a story about why you should wear a helmet, rather than a story about why you should watch where you're going when you're driving a car.
So he's calling out the media for victim blaming and also kind of diverting from what happened when a cyclist gets killed, and how comes they never confront the drivers, basically. Why do they never confront the drivers? I've never noticed that. That's a really, I think that's a valid point. You see that a lot where they talk about, oh, you should wear a helmet, you should do this, you should be. Meanwhile, they never call out, hey, drivers, you are supposed to share the road. We have bike lanes in most cases, and even if we don't, you're supposed to share the road. All right, so I get that. That's a interesting perspective, and I'll be more mindful of that as I'm consuming news. I'm sure we're all going to notice that more as he pointed it out, because it's something that I've never noticed a ton, but now that he mentioned it, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so moving on.
Or the report will say that the cyclist came out of nowhere, or darted in front of me, or was wearing black and therefore invisible, except they make cars that are black, and you can see those, right?
Okay, so that particular statement I think is stretching a little bit. They make cars that are black, and you can see those. Yeah, those black cars have lights on them. That's why you can see them. If the black car had all the lights turned off at night, you wouldn't be able to see it. So I think the point here is, I think pointing out the color black here is a bit of a kind of a bit of just a red herring from both sides. So I think this was not his strongest point. That being said, I mean, there's still a lot of cool stuff in this video. That's not his strongest point. I think the overall theme here is you should wear what you're supposed to wear. And I do, of course, bicyclists, if you're bicycling at night, you should have the proper lights on your bike. You should have a helmet on. You should wear bright colors, maybe a yellow vest. Huh? Right? But so yeah, I do think that there's still a call to responsibility for bicyclists here. So let's not forget about that. They have a responsibility too. And I don't think this person's trying to say they don't. I just don't think that particular point was their strongest. But anyway, moving on.
I even saw a headline once where it said the cyclist fell under a bus, which does not happen. And then recently there was a story near LA of a guy who ran
So that's a ridiculous headline. I think we all can agree. That's a ridiculous headline. All right.
over a cyclist, killed him, and then dragged the bicycle for miles, got home, was caught by the police destroying evidence, and got 1 year in jail. Jail, not prison. Somehow, I've never been hit by a car, but I've had lots of close calls. A few months ago, I was riding here down Little Tahunga Canyon, and I'm just coasting down this descent. I'm minding my own business. I'm on the right side of the road, and there's a car on the right side of the yellow coming towards me, which is fine. And a white Toyota Scion is coming directly at me on the wrong side of the road. He chose that moment to pass around a blind hairpin corner. I was probably going about 30 miles an hour. He must have been going 70. It felt like we were going 1,000 miles an hour at each other.
So basically, the drivers at fault. You should never pass somebody on a blind corner, no matter what. For a number of reasons, there could be someone on a bike. That's one reason. There could be someone on foot. That's another reason. There could be another vehicle. That's a third reason. Basically, there could be another entity involved. We can sum it up to one reason. So what he's pointing out here, this whole situation, that person doing the passing, they are 120% at fault here. If anything would have happened, which fortunately it didn't, he's okay. Nothing happened. That's good. But the person doing the passing there, 120% at fault. You should never pass in a blind scenario. Now, I'm no expert driver. I don't claim to be, but I did used to drive 40,000 miles a year. I've driven through many mountain ranges. I've driven through the Smokies before. I drove through the Smokies once in the Carolinas, and it was to the point where I almost had to pull over to throw up because it was such a windy road that like I actually got nauseous. So, I think the overall theme here is just follow the rules of the road and realize you have to share it. And that goes for drivers and that goes for bicyclists too. If you're on a bike, you still have to follow the rules. And I don't think Phil here is suggesting that you shouldn't, but follow the rules. If you're riding a bike at night, make sure you have lights on, make sure you have bright colors on. But there's a certain theme in our culture where for some reason it's always more the cyclist's fault, and we never kind of take a look at our driving culture. Why? Well, because our driving culture is the big man on campus, quote unquote. Because our driving culture benefits the oil and gas companies. And I think there's a connection there too. Why do we always see favorable coverage for the oil and gas companies? Well, because they buy all the advertising time. And that might be another reason why it's always the cyclist's fault and we never look at our driving culture, because we don't want to look at our driving culture, because then that might decrease it, which would make the advertisers, aka the oil and gas companies, mad. Again, why do oil and gas companies advertise with the corporate media? Do you think that they entertain the notion, hey, people need to know that they have to put gasoline in their car? No, people fucking know. People know, hey, I got to put gas in my car, otherwise it doesn't go. People know that. People know that. So they're advertising to get favorable coverage. And this is just another subset of how the corporate media favors the oil and gas companies and favors the car companies That's how they do it. Because, hey, every third commercial is also going to be a card commercial. We know that. Car commercial. I almost said card. Car commercial. So this is just another for instance of it. When it comes to our bike culture, we always blame the bike culture, never blame the car culture. And so that's a factor that I will be paying more attention to thanks to this video. So cool video. Basically, just try to be cool. When you're the big man on campus, quote unquote, try to be cool. When you're in a car, be mindful of people on a bike. When you're on a bike, follow the rules too and be careful, of course. Of course. Oh, and by the way, and this is one thing I'll point out, and this is coming from somebody who is, I do all three, okay? I ride my bike. I am a pedestrian at times. I like to go on long walks, and I also drive a car. I live in Los Angeles. I drive a car. Pretty much don't have a choice. So I drive a car. I do all those things. Bicyclists, when you're the big person on campus, be mindful of other people too. I say this because when I lived in Seattle, I would walk the Burke-Gilman Trail all the time. There is a designated lane for pedestrians, at least there was, and every single time there was at least a handful of people on bicycles that were in the pedestrian lane, and they would make it out like it was your fault. Like they were like, you had to get out of your way. And there was nowhere for you to go, by the way, because the pedestrian lane was like at the end. Then there was the bike lane. And then over here is just sort of a ditch. So when you're walking and there's a bicyclist coming up, you either have to just jump in a ditch, which is what I would have to do, and any other pedestrian would have to do, or you would have to just jump in front of other cyclists. So cyclists that do that, you're being a dick. Don't do that. That's wrong. You're being wrong in that, for instance. Don't bully pedestrians. You don't want cars to bully you. I don't want that either. So don't bully pedestrians. So anyway, I guess the theme is everybody just be cool. Everybody try to be cool. And the media shits on bicyclists because of big oil. So cool video. I'm for it. I dig it. Right on. All right. So here's another article. This is from The Hill. Progressives face steep odds in ousting incumbent Democrats. Of course. And they better not tweet about it either. So this is the article here. Progressive candidates are launching primary challenges against incumbents like Representative Henry Cooler of Texas, though many will likely face a steep climb in capturing the same set of circumstances that propelled Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to the House last year. Justice Democrats, the group that backed Ocasio-Cortez, has already announced its support for challengers to Cooler and Representative Eliot Engel, but has yet to recruit more candidates or spell out how it intends to support challengers. Meanwhile, the DCCC, the House Democrats' campaign arm, has said that it will not do business with consultants who work with primary challengers, a restriction that has infuriated progressives. Now, we've talked about that. We've talked about that on this show. That's something that we've talked about. And that is a new rule. They will not, if you are supporting, working with progressives who are challenging incumbents, they will not support you. That's something they won't do. So what does that mean? Well, you guys know me. I'm a big punk rock fan. And what punk rockers would do, and still do to this day, you know, the radio didn't want to play them. The establishment record label, and I shouldn't say establishment, but the major labels, they didn't want to work with them either. So what did they do? Well, they built their own infrastructure. That's what they did. They did their own thing. They built their own infrastructure. They started their own labels. They started their own circuits, and they did their own thing. Well, that's what needs to happen here in the political running for office sense. The DCCC doesn't want to work with people who are challenging incumbents. They want to just keep the old guard in check. They don't want to move it all. Okay, so it's time to build a new structure. There's all kinds of brilliant people that worked on progressive campaigns, that worked on those challenging incumbents. And a lot of those people did lose because they were up against the establishment, but it ain't over yet. They're going to try again. So it's time to build a new infrastructure. It's time to build an independent progressive version of the DCCC, which, by the way, is already happening. That's already in existence. So the DCCC doesn't want to work with people challenging incumbents. Who gives a shit? Then ignore the DCCC. It's time to build a new infrastructure. And I know that's going to take time. I know that's going to take effort. But it's already happening. and it needs to continue. You keep doing it, eventually you compete with them. I'm sure somebody told Fugazi that, hey, if you're not getting played on the radio and you're just doing your own music and doing your own labels and touring independently, you're never going to sell more tickets than somebody on a major label. You know how many major label acts Fugazi outsold throughout their entire career? A lot. A lot is the answer. There are tons of bands out there that got $1 million push and ended up doing nothing. Meanwhile, Fugazi sells out venues on their own terms and did it for years and years. Could still be doing it, but, you know, Ian MacKay's moved on to other things. So you get the idea. It's the same premise here. Let's start building our own network. And it's already been happening. So that's what needs to happen. Because the establishment doesn't want to participate with progressives trying to challenge the incumbents. So time to do it DIY style. And it's time for revolution. Guys, that was our last story for the day. I have a question. We haven't done a formal question in a little bit. So there was a fun one last night that I was having this discussion with my fiance last night. This is a fun one. You know, sometimes we like to end the week on something light and fun. That's what we're going to do here. I'm going to go to the chat here in just a second. But here's my question. It's your last meal. For whatever reason, maybe you're on death row. Maybe you're maybe they finally instituted the thought police and all of us just got they rounded us all up and they're going to execute all of us. Maybe we came full fruition to Orwell's nightmare and we're all in jail and we're going to be executed, and our crime is thoughts and words against the establishment. That's our crime. The thought police have gathered all of us, and we're all going to be executed. We get one last meal. What's your last meal? I'll go first. Shrimp scampi. Shrimp scampi. Yeah, that would be my last meal. I get one meal. That's it. I would do shrimp scampi. Linguine. Delicious linguine, a nice garlic sauce, and some shrimp, some delicious prawns. It's always been one of my favorite dishes. And that would be, if I had to have a last meal, that would be my last meal, shrimp scampi. Yeah. Linguine is my favorite pasta, by the way. If I only could have one pasta ever for the rest of my life, I would pick linguine. So that was the other conversation I had with my fiance. I was like, one pasta for the rest of your life. What do you pick? I picked linguine. She picked spatzel, which was an interesting pick. First, she said, I would want your orzo. I make an orzo. I'm proud of it, which I knew she was just joking around. But yeah, she picked spatzel. I picked linguine. I just think there's so much you can do with linguine, and it's so tasty. I mean, there's other pastas that I like a lot too, but they're not as diversified as linguine is. I feel like if I could only pick one forever, I'd pick linguine. And in my final meal, the shrimp scampi meal, I would pick linguine. All right. So what would you guys pick? Lasagna, says Karen. Good pick. All right. Let's see. Mac and cheese. There we go. Let's see. Sean Brock, thank you very much for the super chat contribution. Sup, dog? What up? Yellow vest. I just got one custom for Free Assange on the back. That's really cool, Sean. What would mine say? What would my yellow vest say? Well, I do have a yellow vest that Fred sent me, which thank you again for that, Fred. I need to wear it on one of these streams and wear it out. What would my yellow vest say? I can only pick one thing. There's so many things. Free Assange, that's a good one. Single payer now, that's a good one. Climate crisis, address the climate crisis. Real Green New Deal. Free college. There's so many things. Man, I can only have one. I guess if I could only have one thing, I would just say revolution, right? I mean, if I only get one thing, I know that's not very original, but if you only get one thing, right? You only get one thing. Let's see. Why aren't you wearing one? Why aren't you? Because I just happen to be wearing a t-shirt. Portland police wore yellow vests. Ugh. All right. Is that like they wore yellow vests in protest, or they wore yellow vests because like, oh, we're gonna try to diminish this? Susan Brown's last meal: cookies and ice cream. Let's see. Oh, that's what the yellow vest should say. Aha! Truth can't be silenced. Why aren't you wearing one? That's a good pick. That's way better than mine. Chris's would say, so truth can't be silenced would say, why aren't you wearing one? That's what would be on their yellow vest. That's way better than mine. A1 and 2 would say spotted dick. That's awesome. Spider would say take the power back. Chris Wynn would say compost the rich. Let's see. Andrew says his last meal would be Ben Shapiro. Okay. 2-time last meal, Sri Lankan fried pork curry. Ooh, it's really specific. Let's see. Frederick says I would have a buffet. That's smart. That's smart. Organic fruit crepes, spotted owl, tamales, every cheese Danish, fried dolphin. Human says, sound the alarm. Twitter has taken down the hashtag Unity for J on Twitter. They took down the hashtag? How did they, or do you mean they took down the account? I think you mean they took down the account. Why did they do that? That's horrible. But I think you mean the account. I don't think you mean the hashtag. So we'll have to look into that. Let's see. Patricia gives a shout out to Big Pasta, saying Big Pasta is back. And Big Pasta is also the organization that I'm secretly funded by. A lot of people, I guess I'll give that disclaimer now since I was subtly called out for it. I am funded by Big Pasta. It's not any specific brand. It's just I eat pasta so much that they were like, hey, we're Big Pasta. You don't need to know what we really do, but we're going to fund you. Just kidding, of course. There's going to be somebody who actually takes that seriously. Like, yeah, no, he is. There's big pasta companies. They're stamping it on the little ones, and they fund Ron. There's going to be someone who actually believes that, which all power to them. Honestly, as Chris Wynn says, I would get nervous about dying, and I would choose something dumb like McDonald's. So, by the way, Slow News Day corrects it here. The account was suspended. No reason was given. A group called Action for Assange is hosting an online visual tonight, and Slow News Day is going to be there, so check that out tonight. Big Noodle. A1 and A2. Hey, Ron, has any comedian ever done stand-up while bike riding with a group? There's always a first. I don't know for sure, but probably. Ron, doesn't squash pasta suck? No, I've had some really good squash pastas. My favorite mechanism for making pasta, if you want to make a veggie pasta, is zucchini. Zucchini noodles are great. There's a lot of really fun stuff you can do with zucchini noodles, but I've had great spaghetti squash. I've used other types of squashes for pasta via food spiral, spiraler. Is that, you know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, they're really good. Zucchini's my favorite, though. I would go zucchini over squash any day of the week if I'm making noodles. Yeah. Is Kyle Kalinske funded by Big Seltzer? I don't know. I cannot speak to that. Daniel says pumpkin ravioli. Ooh, I agree. Pumpkin ravioli is so good. Yeah. Spiralizer. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's called a spiralizer. I was like, it's food spiralizer. By the way, I want to actually have a Get Your Food On with Ron segment where I share some of my recipes. Would you guys be into that? Let me know if you'd be into that. Tell me, because I want to do that. I have some recipes I'm kind of proud of. They're all very simple. I'm not a chef, but they're very simple recipes. And what a lot of them are is that they're actually vegan recipes that are really good substitutes for like traditional dishes that I used to know and love. Oh, and you guys are into it. I like that. Yeah. Food Friday says Spider. That's a good idea. Karen says absolutely. Daniel says hell yeah. Dirk Diggler says food. Andrew Gonzalez also says, yeah, get your cook on with Ron, says Jana. Justine says, my last meal would be all the pot brownies I can eat. So you will die with the munchies, Justine. Cool. Yeah, I got a really good butter noodle. Like, and when I say butter, I mean like a vegan butter noodles. I have a recipe for vegan butter noodles that I made up myself. And I'll tell you, if you eat it, you will think you're eating butter noodles. You're like, oh, I'm eating butter right now. This isn't vegan. Ron lied to me. Ron said this was vegan. There's no way it is because I'm eating butter right now. No, you're not. You're eating my vegan butter noodles. I'm telling you. And there is not a spot of dairy in any of it. There is no dairy. No, it is vegan butter noodles. I'm telling you. Daniel went to culinary school in 2009. Well, then you're a better chef than myself. But I have some fun recipes. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Cool. Well, you guys are into that idea. All right. So we'll do it. We're gonna do it. Matthew Pasquale gives a shout out to fish tacos. Right on. Yeah. And Vaughn, this is another PSA I want to throw out there. Gravalanche, 7K donors away from that debate stage. Let's make it happen. Look, Mike Gravel would be great on that debate stage. I've already given to his campaign. Full disclaimer: I have given to Mike Gravel's campaign. And if you want to see his voice on the debate stage, I encourage y'all to do that too. Whatever happened to Pasta? Pasta still does some stuff with me, and he also is the co-host of a show called The Convo Couch, which is a fantastic show. I contribute to that show some when I'm able to, and his co-host Fiorella, she is amazing as well. So Pasta has been a busy dude, been active in the area, and we still do stuff together too. But he's not in this chat quite as often. So anyway, guys, we are out of time. Tour dates, I got them. And we're going to get that food segment started. Keep an eye out for it. Tour dates, though, I got them. First of all, Vegas. Don't wait. Get your tickets now. July 27th, we're going to be in Vegas. Don't wait. Get your tickets now. July 27th, ronplacone.com for tickets. And the Northern Plains Tour has expanded. So first of all, September 5th, we're going to be in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. September 6th, Madison, Wisconsin. September 7th, we're going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's Graham Elwood and myself. And September 8th, we're going to be in Iowa City, Iowa. Tickets are available for that now. September 4th, and we should have tickets available very soon within the next day or so. But September 4th, you're hearing it here first. We're going to be in Omaha, Nebraska. We just confirmed Omaha. So we got a 5-date tour in the Northern Plains. We're hitting Omaha, Sioux Falls, Madison, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, and Iowa City, Iowa. Get your tickets now. Nebraska, we don't have the tickets up yet. We're still finalizing everything there. But we're going to be in Omaha, Nebraska. Plan your trip now. ronplacone.com for all those tickets. If you want to support the show on the sustainability end, please do consider becoming a patron. For Give What You Can, Love What You get all kinds of exclusive content, including my album, and you help me expand the show. I want to have more guests. I want to do more streams. I want to expand. Doing more on my own now. I want to do more on my own. I want to grow this. I could use your help if you are so able. Give What You Can level. Patreon.com/ronplacone. Please like and share and subscribe to these videos. Play these on autoplay. Let the ads play through. And don't just do that for me. Do that for all the content creators you love. It helps sustain our channel, and it's important. YouTube unsubscribes people. YouTube won't give you a notification. So please like and share. Ring the bell. Make sure you get notices. Make sure you're subscribed. People get unsubscribed all the time. Do that for all the content creators you know and love. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you for another amazing week of Get Your News On with Ron. Thank you for your fantastic articles and chat contributions. This show is not possible without you because you tweet me the articles you want to talk about. I don't pick them. You pick them. You send me the songs of the day. This show would not be possible without y'all. We're going to do a cooking segment, and I'm looking forward to that. In the meantime, stay safe. Tomorrow, the podcast drops. Podcast always drops on Friday, so if you missed anything this week, you can get a summary from the podcast, and we'll be back on Monday. I'll see you Monday for Music Monday. Same time, same channel, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, and still then. Until then, have an amazing weekend. And you know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.